Welcome to the Offshore Club's most riveting and revealing offshore lifestyle podcast, Open Mike, with Mike Cobb. For more than 20 years, Mike has worked and lived in Caribbean countries from north to south and the Atlantic to the Pacific. Nobody knows it better. And now, here is your offshore ambassador at large, Mike Cobb.
Hello. This is Carib Carter Clues welcoming you to another episode of Open Mike with the inimitable Mike Cobb. Mike, welcome to your own show.
Thank you. Hey, good to be here, and I love having you on the show with me. It just makes it so much more fun, Carter. It's always fun to hang out and chat before the live session. So it's good. Glad we're rolling today.
Mike and I have enjoyed hanging out and chatting for over 20 years now. He had hair and I was young or younger. And this is yes, and this is really, this folks is a great show because every day we have a different show at Offshore.club. Check it out, Offshore.club. Mondays, by the way, is Coffee with Carib Carter, where we talk about let's do this thing. Don't miss that show. It's very important you watch that show, right, Mike?
Yeah, absolutely. And bring your coffee. Enjoy a cup of coffee with Carter.
Bring your coffee. Have coffee with Carib Carter. Right. This show is really unique, and it really is one of my favorites throughout the week because we talk on the other show. It's mostly about the lifestyle and that you're going to enjoy when you make your move south to the good life at a great price. On this show, though, we're talking with the most outstanding offshore entrepreneur in the world. Okay. I'm just going to say in the world because I know Mike, and this gentleman owns 4 resorts, residential resort communities, has other major. So this man knows what he speaks and he shares it with you absolutely free. It's the kind of stuff a lot of investment houses charge you a fortune for. But and maybe Mike, one of these days we have to make people pay to come on with me and you. That would be our dream come true.
I don't know. You know what? I actually, I sort of see my mission in life is to, help people make really good decisions when they buy property overseas, which is, by the way, one of the reasons I wrote the Consumer Resource Guide for property buying overseas, and we give it away for free, Carter. We give it away for free. You do. I mean, your folks have access to it because, it's really everything that somebody would want to know about how to buy property overseas successfully and safely. Because, when we go overseas, we don't know what we don't know. And sadly, we sometimes bring a lot of assumptions with us, too, that don't hold water, outside of North America. So this Consumer Resource Guide is that. And I'm very, very happy to give it away for free because, you know what? If over the next 20 years that we know each other, right now about 8 million North Americans are expats, and I think that number is not going to double. I think that number is going to quintuple. I think there'll be 80 million North Americans living outside North America over the next 20 years, and you know what? I want the next I want the next. I said 80 million. Eight times 5 is what?
40. I think it's 40.
40, thank you, 40, not 8.
I think it'll probably be 80 anyway.
Yeah, whatever. Anyway, yeah. But the next, but 40 million, right?
Yeah.
Living overseas. I want those folks to really make sure they're doing it well and doing it right. And you know what? 99% of those people aren't going to buy a property from me. But if 1% of those people buy a property, 400,000 or whatever that number is, we're going to be very, very happy with that. But what I'll be most happy with is knowing that the other 39,600,000 of them got a property that was really right for them and served the needs and wants that they have, and that's important. I mean that's the kind of stuff you can kind of go to your grave saying I did a good thing, and sure, our company makes money and we're going to make money and we need to make money, right? I mean, we're a capitalist company, we're in business to make money. But if the other 39 million people who don't own one of our properties make a great decision, that'll be wonderful too, Carter.
And that's fantastic. And I'm glad you're saying this about what you tell people. Now they can get first of all, they can get the free handbook, the free guide, at
Yep.
ECIdevelopment.com, right?
Yep. Yep.
ECIdevelopment.com, folks. Go
Use
there.
info. Yeah, just actually the best thing to do, actually, if you want the consumer resource guide, is just send an email to info at ECIdevelopment.com and just say, consumer guide. Throw Carter in the subject line or something, just so we know that you were on here today and we're watching and listening to this. But yeah, just send us a quick email and we'll send you the consumer resource guide. Yep.
Absolutely free. While you're there, check out the properties, because what we're going to talk about, and I want to make clear, and I'm glad Mike already brought that up. This show is not about selling you ECI properties. I think you should look very closely at that, because when you buy one of the properties at any one of Mike's residential resort communities, you're getting the best property at the best price, but you can buy anywhere. And when you do, and this is what I want Mike to zero in on today for us. When you do, there are certain things you need to look for and look out for. Okay. Before you go into it, Mike, let me give an example. When I bought my first property in Honduras 11 years ago, I learned the hard way that in some of these Central American countries, when you buy from Jose, you may not know that Joselita and Juan and Juanita and Raulita and 13 other relatives actually also own the property, and you got a big ball of wax. So, and I don't want that to happen to you, neither does Mike. So Mike, what are the five top things for our viewers to look for and look out for when they're going to buy a property in Central America offshore?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. In the consumer resource guide, we've got 15 questions that people should ask, but they really center around 3 simple principles. So I've got 3 simple principles that'll be the first 3, and then I've got 2 more that are a little different. But the 3 simple principles are simply these: buy what you see, own community, know the developer. Okay. So those are 1, 2, 3. I can expand on them just a bit. Buy what you see. A lot of times, you go to a project in wherever outside North America, Mexico, Central America, South America, Southeast Asia, wherever, right? You go to a project and the developer's like, oh yeah, we're gonna build a clubhouse over here. We're gonna build the pool here. We're gonna build the restaurant. We're gonna build a golf course. Well, I mean, gonna, I don't even know if that's a real word. Gunna, gonna, right? I mean, like, okay, I don't know what that means. And the point is that it's okay if you believe the developer, right? If you believe the developer, fine. One of the things I would do, and we talk about this in the consumer resource guide, is, if they're gonna build a golf course or whatever it is they say they're gonna do, ask to see last month's bank statement. Great. I'm glad you're going to build a golf course. I love to golf. Can you print out your April bank statement and show me, $4 million sitting there, $5 million, whatever, right? Or they're going to build a clubhouse. They've got these grand designs for 15,000 square foot and waterfalls, and great. Show me $2 million sitting there, right? Because if you're going to do it, that's great. I love to golf, or I want to come eat at the restaurant in the clubhouse. But if they don't have the money to do it, how are they gonna do it, right? So we as consumers in the U.S. don't always think to ask that question, right? Because in North America, we're so used to having, truth in advertising. We're used to having Big Brother at, regulatory agencies and bonding and all this stuff that ensures that if a developer says they're going to do it, like, they actually have the money and they can do it, right? But outside the U.S. and Canada, that's not the case, right? So buy what you see. And look, if you say to yourself, well, I believe the developer, and you've asked to see the bank statement, sure enough, they got a couple, $3-4 million sitting there. You think, okay, well, they're going to get it done. Here's my suggestion. No problem. That's great. I'm either going to pay the price for what the property looks like today, right? If there's no golf course, no clubhouse, I'm just buying a piece of dirt, right? Sometimes it's a piece of dirt with no roads and no electric, right? I mean, we're going to put the roads, we're going to put the electric. Okay, that's all great. But today that property is worth X, whatever X is, without those things, right? And And one of the things that I would certainly say is no problem. I'll pay you, I'll pay you $25,000 today. Let's say it's worth $100,000. I'll pay you another $25,000 when the road and the electric's in, and I'll pay you $50,000, when the golf course and clubhouse is in, because you know what? It's worth $100,000 with those things, but with none of those things as it is today, it's worth $25,000. So let me pay you as you deliver these things. Well, if they never deliver, you own the lot for 25 grand, right? So buy what you see, or pay, probably more specifically, pay for what you see. Right? There's buy what you see.
Number one.
Own community. Own community. I call them ghost towns. There are chunks of real estate, literally, I'm sure, thousands of miles of beachfront real estate throughout Mexico, Central and South America that were bought by developers. We bought 3.5 miles of beach at our Grand Pacifica community. Now we hired urban planners, city planners to help us design a town, right? But many developers literally stick in, let's say they buy a mile. They might buy a mile of beachfront in, Nicaragua, Costa Rica, Mexico, wherever. They literally come back from the beach, 200 feet, 300 feet, and they put a road for 1 mile. Right. And they run some telephone poles, put some electric in. They chop the lots up along the beach, 100 feet wide, 250 feet deep, whatever it is. Now you got these beautiful half-acre lots right on the Pacific Ocean, for example. And then they sell them for 100, 152, 250, whatever the market will bear, for these just beautiful half-acre lots on the ocean. And a lot of times the buyers are speculative. They're people out of California who go, holy smokes, if I wanted to buy a half acre on the Pacific Ocean in California, I'd pay $2, $3, $4 million, not, $200,000-$300,000. So I'll take one, I'll take three, whatever it is, right? The problem is nobody wants to be the first house on that beach all by themselves. They're ghost towns. And literally there are thousands of miles of property that have been chopped up and sold where there are no homes, or one home, or three homes in a stretch of a mile, because very few people want to be the first house out on a beach all by themselves. So when I say own community, I think there are a lot of elements. Again, we have 5 questions in the consumer guide that hit this exactly. But if you are a lifestyle buyer, right, you're actually wanting to live there and be there, right, then you want neighbors, you want people around that you can make new friends, because presumably if you're going to live there all the time and you're not a hermit, like, you're going to want to see people and talk to people and get, have community. And so understanding the elements of community and what it takes to have community is fundamentally important. And you just can't anticipate that you buy in a ghost town, the developer's talking about, all the wonderful things that are gonna happen. And, but it might be 10 or 20 or 30 years before that fills out. So owning community is critically important. That's number 2. Number 3 is know the developer. When we buy property overseas, when we buy property in North America, we would not think that, like, I'm getting married to the developer, right? We wouldn't think of it that way. But because, again, we've got all these government agencies that look out for us, right? And whether we know it or not, they are there looking out for us, right? And so when we go overseas, we don't have those. And so the only person or people or institution, if it's a company, that's going to look out for your interests is the developer, right? Whatever they say they're going to do, nobody's going to make them do it, right? Nobody's checked to see that they can in the first place. Nobody's bonded them to make sure they can, right? Or to ensure that they can. And there's no government agency that's going to follow up on it. So when you own a piece of property overseas, decide to buy a piece of property overseas, you've got to look at that relationship with the developer as the relationship. And I know some people, fly off to Las Vegas and meet a girl out there or meet a boy out there and they get married on the same weekend, right? It doesn't happen very often for a reason. Most people, you start dating someone, for a while, you get engaged for a while, and then you get married for a while. And that's, months to years, right? I mean, there's a reason that we don't just marry the first person we see or marry them, a day or two after we meet them. Same thing with the development. Same thing with a property overseas. Take your time. Get to know the developer. And in the third section, the last 5 questions in the Consumer Resource Guide really focus on the element of how do we get to know the developer? One way is to ask to see a copy of their business plan, right? Do they have a business plan? Gosh, that's an important question. Like, can they actually produce a roadmap of how they do business and how they plan to do business in the future, right? It's not a particularly complicated thing. Our business plan is almost 300 pages, and there's a lot going on. We work in 4 countries, and we have 90 people, and we got many different things going on. But that's probably at the high end of the the number of the extent of a business plan. But if somebody can produce a 3-page document, 5-page document that says, yep, here's how we do business, here's how we plan to carry forward in the future. They've at least sat down and thought about it and put it on paper, right? And then the other thing that it allows you to do as the consumer is to align your goals and objectives with what they've put down as what they see their future direction is. And that alignment's really important. Again, you don't want to get married and then have to get divorced, right? You don't go into a marriage thinking you're going to get divorced, right? But the same thing with owning a property. If you buy a property and then you find out that they've planned to do X, Y, and Z, but you're not a big fan of X, Y, and Z, it's nice to know that ahead of time. And a business plan lets you see that. Ask for a copy of financials. Hey, I'd like to see your financials, Mr. or Mrs. Developer. I mean, any real business produces financials, and I would say any truly authentic business will let you look at them. You might have to sign a non-disclosure agreement, right? Which we probably would ask you to do as well. But you know what? If you sign an NDA, we'll let you see our financials, right? Because we want you to know our financial health, and we're a real business. We produce financials.
Let me ask you this, because I bet you it's occurring to some of our viewers right now. Most people are very unassuming, and they don't want to hurt other people's feelings. Look, as a developer, does it offend you if somebody says, "Hey, I need to see your business plan and your finance"? Does that offend you as a developer? Do you feel like your integrity is being questioned? Because I think, as I say, most people don't like to. Americans are nice people.
Yeah. That's a great question, Carter. Let me just say that I would, gosh, I hate to say this. I'm going to say it because it's you, Carter. I'm going to say it. Right? I think the only people who would be offended are the people who don't have good answers for that question. When somebody asks me for a copy of my financials, do you know what I say to them? I go, wow, that's a great thing to be asking for. You know what?
Good.
I wish more people who were buying property overseas were asking to see financials before they bought a piece of property. That's a really smart, wise question you're asking. Let me see a copy of your business plan, or whatever it is, right? Those are extremely prudent questions that you're right. We're very unassuming, but you know what? We've been lulled into this false sense of security. That's not true. We've been lulled into a sense of security in the US because we've got this giant big brother of a government who does all of this stuff for us, and I kind of pick on the libertarians once in a while because the libertarians are all, like, oh, small government, and we don't want all this. We want more freedom. Well, that's fine. But the flip side of the coin, right? It's the same coin. Freedom's on one side, personal responsibilities on the other, right? The problem is when we go overseas, we don't know how to do due diligence because we've never really had to work in a buyer beware environment. In our lifetimes, Carter, there might be some people who came through the 20s, right, before a lot of FDR's regulatory stuff, came on board. And so there might be some really old people, older than you, Carter. Sorry,
it's a little hard to conceive of, Mike. If they were older, the only thing they're buying is a cemetery plot. You don't need to see the financials on that.
Right, exactly. So, but but people in the U.S. rightly make the assumption they don't have to worry about this stuff, and they don't. Right? You don't have to worry about this stuff. It's seller beware, right? Caveat emptor is buyer beware. I don't know what seller beware is in Latin, but anyway. Yeah, I don't know. We'll have to look that up for another time, Carter. But the point is
that for the next show.
Thank you. We can be comfortable. We can buy stuff in the U.S. We don't have to think about this stuff. Boom, boom, do it. But the problem is when we go overseas, we do not know how to live and work and buy things in a buyer beware environment. It is so different. And so that's really why this consumer resource guide came to be, because I was just watching people, buy stuff and make horrible mistakes. And, a lot of the mistakes I made, I'm a consumer too, right? I made a lot of mistakes over the last 25 years. And so when I would make a mistake, I would look at it and go, whoa, what happened there? Oh man, I write it down. And I wrote this book, right? This consumer resource guide, because, I made a lot of the mistakes. I saw a lot of people make those mistakes. And, and again, in the end, I just want people to make really good decisions when they decide to, own a piece of property overseas, and, and everybody wins in that scenario.
Yeah. And,
I have, go ahead.
It's just parenthetically, it occurs to me that when you really think about it, the more cautious people are, the more it benefits you as well. Because if there are people running around out there who, let's say somebody's thinking, I'm thinking of buying a piece of offshore property, a home offshore, and they run into somebody who has not done the due diligence you've just said, and they say, man, be careful, man. You know what happened to me? I bought this place and it turned out to be a swamp with alligators and no homes with anyone. Then they say, well, geez, I guess I can't buy it. And you lose, despite the fact you're totally honest about it. And so,
it's true, Carter. There's a lot of self-serving in this consumer resource guide because, again, two things happen. One, if people do really good due diligence, probably half or more, maybe, 2/3 of my competitors just won't make the cut, right? They just won't. So now all of a sudden, I'm competing, instead of competing against, 20, similar properties, right? They're not similar, right? But instead of competing against 20 similar properties, I'm competing against 6.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, right. I mean, I like those odds better, right? Yeah. But ultimately, you're right, Carter. If people make bad decisions, they're going to tell 100 people how horrible it was. They got ripped off, blah 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 blah. And it's going to scare people away. And so right. So I mean, certainly I care.
Yeah.
Everybody wins. Right.
Everybody wins. Yeah. So those are the top 3. They're in the guide. Remember, folks, free at info@ecidevelopment.com. Absolutely free. Absolutely free. It should be your Bible before you buy. It should be your Bible before you buy.
Absolutely. So I got 2 more, Carter. I got a quick one. It's the old adage, what's good for the goose is good for the gander, right? And so when people are selling condos, a lot of people sell condos as investments, right? Hey, buy this condo, and they give you this, this little, printout of, if we have, 50% occupancy and the average daily rate, which is called ADR is the acronym. So we do 50% occupancy and the ADR is, $150 a night, you're going to make, 10%. If we do 60% occupancy and, $160 a night, you're going to make 12%. I'm just making up numbers off the top of my head, whatever it is. Anyway, but they have these little sheets that they print out. And my question would be, if it's good for the goose, it's good for the gander, right? So yeah, Mr. Developer, Mrs. Developer, that is phenomenal. 10, 12, 15%. Holy smokes. I want one. But here's the question first, Mr. and Mrs. Developer. 10, 12, 15%, that's a great return. How many of these are you keeping? Right? How many are you keeping? Right? Because I personally want every bit of 12% I can get, right? So to turn that around, and a lot of times and again, I mean, this is the kind of stuff that my competitors probably kick my ass if they catch me on the street because I'm blowing it out of the water for them, right? No, I mean they'll show you a picture of a condo building and there's only 3 left, right? They've sold them all, right? Whether they did or not, that's just sort of the the BS, right? Oh, they're going like hotcakes. Get yours today because there won't be one tomorrow, right?
Sold, sir. That's it.
Right. Sold. Right.
Yeah.
Come on. But the question would be, wow, if it's such a great return, man, why aren't you keeping those last 3? Why didn't you keep the last 23? Right. So again, I always question that. So there's the saying, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. And when somebody's offering you something north of 10%, right, real quick, man, how many are you keeping? Because, and just so we're developing a Marriott Resort and Residences in Ambergris, Key Belize, and we are keeping 60%, at least 60%, more than half we're keeping. And we're going to sell the least amount possible because we want the return on investment that we know it'll produce. And then in every one of our condo buildings and communities, we keep at least 10%, sometimes as much as 30%. So we keep between 10 and 30%, usually 20, 25% of the inventory we keep because we want the return on investment that it will produce, for us as a company. So again, it's that good for the goose, good for the gander thing. And it's an easy thing to remember, good, right? And then the last one, and then the last one is really sort of a philosophical question that I like to put out there because in 25 years of doing this, I have watched so many people I call compromise to the middle. And let me tell you the example I have. Again, I like pictures, right? Pictures help people remember things. And so if you're a coffee drinker, and I know you are, Carter, and you got a steaming hot cup of coffee, it's delicious, right? Yeah. There you go, right? And I don't know if you like those fancy Frappuccino drinks at Starbucks, but the frozen coffee drinks, right? You sip one of those, man, they're so good. But if you were to take either of those and set them on a table and let them both go to room temperature, that steaming hot cup of coffee, room temperature, that wonderful Frappuccino frozen, room temperature, neither one of them are very good anymore, right? Yeah. And so what we counsel people is when you're looking for a property overseas, make a decision up front. I am buying this as an investment first. I'm going to buy this condo, this home, this property. It's an investment. Well, guess what? An investment is a head decision. What are the numbers? What's the ROI? What's the occupancy? What's the tourism industry data look like? Right? How many people are walking down the beach? I mean, whatever it is. I mean, it's an analytical function. It's a cerebral function. That's investment. Forget about what you like. Here's the analogy. Carter, if you owned a pizza parlor and you hated anchovies, would you still sell anchovy pizza?
Absolutely.
Great. Because it's
anchovies.
Yeah, right. Well, fair enough. But I'll pick something you don't like, Hawaiian pizza. I don't know. But my point is that even if you didn't like it, you would still sell it. Because when you're in the business or the investment, it's not about what you like, it's about what other people like. So it's a head decision, right? Lifestyle is a heart decision. Take your head out of it for the first part of it. Ultimately, bring your head back because you want to ask the due diligence questions. You want to make sure all the, there is a title, it's a good title, and you've hired a lawyer. Those are analytical things. But in the evaluation of the property, take the investment out of it and say, you know what? Do I like the view from my veranda? Do I like the restaurants near me? Do I like my neighbors? Do I like the community? How does this feel when I'm sitting by the pool? Does it feel wonderful? Well, if you can answer those questions, yes, to your heart, right? It's a wonderful place. It feels good. Well, then that's probably a great home, right? It could be a vacation home. It could be a full-time home, right? But a home should feel awesome. That's what a home does. It feels great. So my counsel to people is take and decide early on, right when you're getting ready to think about this. All right, I'm making an investment. I'm going to do analytical research, or I'm buying a lifestyle. I'm buying a home, and so I'm going to feel about it first, and then yes, bring the analytics in to make sure you're making a good decision, right? But those two things: hot cup of coffee, wonderful frozen Frappuccino. Either are awesome. You let them both go to room temperature. You compromise to the middle. And that's what happens. People buy a home, but they want some investment thing in it. Or they buy an investment, but they want some homey thing in it. And all of a sudden, they're kind of in the middle. And they don't get great either. They don't get great on either accomplishment. And it's still drinkable. It's still drinkable. But it's not awesome.
It's not awesome.
Anyway, there you go. 5. There you're 5. Which way's 5? There you go.
I see it 5. That's great. I mean, I think everybody out there, I hope you took notes, because that's great stuff. That's great stuff that you're not going to hear anywhere else except on Open Mic, because we're the only ones that have Mike Cobb. But even if you didn't take notes, go to info@ecidevelopment.com and ask for the name of the guide again, Mike. What's the name of the guide?
Consumer Resource Guide.
Consumer Resource Guide. And
Yep.
and you're going to have this information right at the tips of your fingers, which is vitally important, which is great information. You know, we encourage you every day, look offshore. As a matter of fact, I make it even stronger. Go offshore, particularly now.
Yeah.
It ain't getting any better here, and they're not going to. And there you can live the good life at a great price, and you just got the guidance on how to do it. So, Mike, thank you once again.
Thanks, Carter.
And it's a pleasure.
Happy Friday, everybody.
Happy Friday, and we will see you next Friday. Thanks for joining us.
Yep. But they'll see you Monday for Coffee with Carter.
Oh, don't forget that. Thank you. Thank you. I can't believe I'm the most shameless person in the world. I forgot to sell myself. All right.
That's right. I'll sell you, Carter. Hey, take care, everybody.
Thank you. Take care.
For more information on the Offshore Club or to contact Mike Cobb, visit www.offshore.club today. www.offshore.club. That's www.offshore.club. See you next time at the Offshore Club.